What if I told you that one of humanity's greatest secrets has been hidden in plain sight? A mystery so profound, so transformative, it could completely change how we understand life, death, and everything in between. The idea that we only live once, that our eternal destiny is sealed in a single existence, might not be as definite as we've been led to believe. Because there's a teaching, lost in the shadows of time, that suggests something very different. Reincarnation, an eternal cycle of learning, an infinite return to flesh and spirit, a concept present in the oldest spiritual traditions on earth, from Egypt to India, from Greece to the early Christians. But if it was so widely accepted, why was it erased from the Bible? What led powerful figures in history to wipe this knowledge off the spiritual map of the West? Today, we're going to explore this hidden secret. We'll travel through time, unravel ancient manuscripts, challenge dogmas, and reveal the forces that reshaped our vision of the soul. But before we proceed, remember, true knowledge is for those who dare to seek it. If you feel you're ready to see beyond the veil and dive into the mysteries of existence, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications, because the truth has been hidden for centuries, but not forever. The idea of reincarnation isn't new. Long before the advent of Christianity, ancient civilizations already believed that the soul not only survived death, but repeatedly returned to earth to continue its learning. In ancient Egypt, priests taught that the soul went through successive cycles of purification, each life bringing new opportunities for spiritual evolution. The Hindus, through the Vedas, have spoken for millennia of samsara, the eternal cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, governed by the law of karma. The Pythagoreans in Greece conveyed the belief that the immortal soul migrated from body to body, depending on its past actions. And within Judaism itself, roots of this belief can be found. The concept of Gilgul Neshamot, or rotation of souls, appears in Kabbalistic texts, suggesting that spirits return to earth to complete unfinished missions. Given this, the inevitable question arises: if reincarnation was widely accepted by so many spiritual traditions and even in currents of Judaism, why was it suppressed from mainstream Christianity? In the early centuries of the Common Era, many Christians also believed in reincarnation. Origen of Alexandria, one of the most influential early Christian thinkers, taught that the soul existed before birth and could return to earth to perfect itself. His understanding was rooted in the idea of a just and merciful God, a God who would allow multiple chances for redemption rather than an irrevocable final judgment after a single life. But these ideas represented a problem that challenged emerging power structures. The early church was consolidating itself and over time began to define the dogmas that would determine Christian thought for centuries. And in the 6th century, at the Second Council of Constantinople, Origen was officially condemned. His ideas about the pre-existence of the soul and by extension reincarnation were classified as heresy. But why? What was the real reason behind this decision? The answer may lie less in theology and more in control. A belief in reincarnation empowers the individual. It suggests that we have multiple opportunities to grow and evolve, that we are not eternally condemned for a single mistake, and that our destiny is not only in the hands of an external authority, but in our own choices over multiple lives. For an institution seeking to consolidate power, this view could be dangerous. After all, a population that believes in rebirth doesn't fear the eternal fire of damnation. A population that understands its soul is sovereign doesn't need an institution to mediate its salvation. And so, slowly, the idea of reincarnation was swept from official doctrine. Texts that suggested this possibility were reinterpreted, excluded, or obscured. The teaching that the soul could return was replaced by a rigid view of heaven and hell, a model that offered more control over the faithful and ensured that the Church's authority remained absolute. But the traces of this truth never completely disappeared. And when we look closely, we find hints, clues hidden in ancient scriptures and in forgotten teachings. And that's exactly what we're going to explore now. Now let's delve into the reasons why reincarnation was deliberately excluded from the Bible. To fully understand this movement, we need to look at the scriptures that remained and those that were erased or distorted. Let's start with one of the most mysterious passages in the New Testament. In John 9:1-3, there's a moment when Jesus' disciples encounter a man blind from birth. And curious, they ask, "Master, who sinned that he was born blind, this man or his parents?" Jesus' answer is intriguing. Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. Here we see an implicit assumption that before being born, the man could have sinned. This concept wouldn't make sense within the traditional theology of a single life cycle, where sin and redemption are isolated events of a single existence. But if we think that the man's soul may have lived in a previous life, the concept of pre-existing sin becomes plausible. This small passage suggests that the idea of past lives wasn't a foreign thought to early Christians, although it has been conveniently forgotten over time. Furthermore, there's another powerful example, which appears in the form of a reunion between Jesus and his disciples. In Matthew 17:10-13, after the Transfiguration, the disciples ask Jesus about the appearance of Elijah the prophet. Jesus responds, "Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him, but have done to him whatever they wished. In the same way, the Son of Man is going to suffer at their hands." Here, Jesus himself suggests that Elijah, a great prophet of the Old Testament, had already returned, now in a new form. Wouldn't that be an implicit reference to reincarnation? The idea that a being can return in a new incarnation to complete an unfinished mission seems to resonate strongly with the philosophy of reincarnation. These fragments of text reveal to us an ancient understanding that has been, over time, reinterpreted or simply ignored. As the Church established itself as an unquestionable authority on spiritual matters, reincarnation was seen as a threat to the centralized power of Christian doctrine. By banishing the concept, the Church created a simpler and more controllable theological model, a single life with a definite beginning and end. The Christian faith came to revolve around immediate salvation or damnation after death, leaving little room for continuous growth or the perfection of the soul over multiple lives. The fear of final judgment became an effective instrument of social control. But even in those times, some seeds of resistance to dogma survived. Saint Jerome, for example, who translated the Bible into Latin, the famous Vulgate, was known to have ideas about reincarnation that conflicted with official declarations. In his writings, he refers to certain texts and interpretations that suggest a broader understanding of the soul, capable of being reborn. However, these ideas were stifled as Christian orthodoxy consolidated, suppressing anything that could weaken the centrality of a single life and a final judgment. Now, if reincarnation was really present in early Christianity, why was it abandoned? To fully understand, we must look at what was at stake. Christianity was emerging in a world filled with ancient mysteries, philosophies, and religions that dealt with the soul and rebirth. Rome, for example, had already absorbed a large part of these beliefs, often in its mystery cults. The rise of a new religious order required its own narrative, an absolute truth that excluded any spiritual alternative. The early church couldn't afford to divide the faithful between different philosophies, especially when it came to life after death. But was the exclusion of reincarnation a mistake? Or could there be a greater reason? a lesson we need to learn by rescuing this lost concept. This is something we'll explore soon, as the true essence of reincarnation goes beyond the mere repetition of lives. There's an esoteric depth that has been obscured by history, but that we can begin to access now by awakening consciousness to these ancient teachings. And the next part, where we'll unravel the deep spiritual and philosophical implications of reincarnation, will take us even deeper. Prepare for a surprising revelation. Now, we arrive at the deepest layer of this mystery. The exclusion of reincarnation from the Bible wasn't just a matter of control and power. There was something more, something esoteric, profound, that touches on the fundamental questions of our existence and the relationship between man and the divine. To understand the real implications of reincarnation, we need to look beyond the physical to the spiritual dimensions that Christianity, throughout its history, seems to have ignored or distanced itself from. Let's start with the central idea that many occultists and spiritual masters have discussed over the centuries. The soul, in its true nature, isn't limited to linear time as we understand it. What we consider time in physical reality is just an illusion, a veil that covers the immortality of the soul. This immortality doesn't mean that we simply live forever, but rather that the process of spiritual evolution is eternal and endless, occurring throughout countless lives. The physical body dies, but the soul remains, advancing, learning, and perfecting itself. Reincarnation, therefore, isn't just a cycle of physical rebirth, but a process of purification, transformation, and enlightenment. Each life is an opportunity for the soul to align more with its divine nature, overcome the limitations of ego and materialism, and reach a higher state of consciousness. Here, the concept of the law of karma connects perfectly. Karma isn't a punishment, it's a lesson. Each action, thought, or feeling we create generates a reaction, but not in the sense of punishment, but in the sense of learning. A soul that makes a mistake in one life will have the chance to correct those mistakes in another, deepening its understanding and, with that, its ability to create a reality more aligned with truth and universal love. This is where Christian philosophy conflicts with the idea of reincarnation. Traditional Christian doctrine suggests that original sin is something that, once committed, eternally defines the destiny of the soul. Christ's act on the cross offers the possibility of immediate forgiveness and salvation, a linear understanding that eliminates the need for continuous learning or multiple opportunities for growth. The only chance for salvation seems to be a one-time life, a cycle that begins and ends with a choice. Life is a straight line, a final test. But what if the test was, in fact, a process? What if our spiritual journey was like a river flowing smoothly along multiple cycles of existence, instead of an abrupt jump from one life to another? If the soul has the chance to evolve in each incarnation, to heal wounds, to understand the deeper meaning of life and death, how would that change our perception of God, creation, and life after death? Now let's talk about something even more mysterious. What happens when consciousness awakens to the reality of reincarnation? There are accounts of people who, upon experiencing a deep spiritual awakening, perceive flashes of past lives, memories of other times. Certain spiritual masters and sages speak about the mind's ability to access these previous lives, not as a fantasy or desire for escape, but as a way of remembering our true nature and our spiritual mission. These insights can be incredibly transformative, because by understanding that life isn't a single chance but a continuous journey, the way we live our lives changes profoundly. Instead of fearing error or failure, we begin to see difficulties as opportunities for learning, something that can be improved over many existences. we see relationships, suffering, and death in a completely new way, as part of a cosmic process of growth and spiritual evolution. This vision isn't just comforting, it empowers us. Because if we are indeed living a spiritual journey that extends over several lives, then we have an infinity of chances to correct course, to evolve, to create our destiny. Instead of being prisoners of the fear of death, we are called to be masters of our own soul, to live consciously and to take the reins of our evolutionary process. But how can we apply this revelation in our daily lives? How can we begin to access this knowledge and bring this ancient wisdom into the practice of the now? Let's explore this in the next segment. Now that we've unraveled the deepest layers of this esoteric mystery, how can we bring all of this into our daily lives? How can we apply the knowledge of reincarnation and the understanding of the continuous flow of the soul to transform our life experience here and now? It's not just about believing in distant spiritual concepts, but about integrating these principles in a practical way so that we can live more consciously, aligned and evolved. Meditations and connections with past lives. One of the most powerful ways to access this deep wisdom is through meditation. By silencing the mind and allowing it to open to the flow of consciousness, we can access memories, insights, and experiences from other lives. This isn't an intellectual exercise, but a practice of intuition and sensitivity. The goal here isn't to seek direct answers or specific responses, but simply to allow images and feelings to come to the surface. For example, try sitting in a calm environment, closing your eyes and taking deep breaths. Ask your soul to connect with your spiritual records and simply observe what arises. You might feel a sense of déjà vu, an emotional connection to certain people or places, or even vivid dreams that can reveal aspects of past lives. Karmic healing exercise. The concept of karma teaches us that the soul carries unlearned lessons and unresolved energies from past lives. These energies can manifest as recurring patterns, difficult relationships, or even spiritual and emotional blockages. To break these patterns and heal karma, we can perform release rituals. A simple but profound practice is karmic healing. To do this, set aside a moment for introspection and mentally imagine that you are looking at a past life, not literally, but as a symbolic image. Ask yourself, what was unresolved in that life? What patterns am I still carrying? Visualize these energies as chains that dissolve as you free yourself and allow peace and forgiveness to flow into your being. Releasing karma is not an act of self-pity, but of empowerment. By understanding that we are agents of our own evolution, we can unlock powerful forces to heal and grow. Conscious reincarnation ritual. Another transformative exercise is the conscious reincarnation ritual. Instead of fearing death or seeing life as a single, final event, this ritual allows you to accept the idea that the soul is immortal and that each life has a profound purpose. To perform this ritual, choose a sacred place where you feel connected to the divine or to your purest essence. Then write on a piece of paper something you would like to leave behind, an emotional wound, a regret, or even a habit you want to transform. Burn the paper symbolically, releasing that emotional burden. Then visualize the energy of your soul renewing itself, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Imagine that with each rebirth, you are becoming more conscious, wiser, and more aligned with your spiritual mission. This ritual, although simple, is a powerful affirmation that you are not limited to time, space, or a single life experience. You are an eternal being, always evolving. Transforming the fear of death. The fear of death is, in many ways, what prevents us from living fully. But when we begin to understand reincarnation as a process of continuous learning and growth, this fear begins to lose its power over us. An essential practice for transforming the fear of death is the contemplation of the soul's immortality. Take time to reflect on your eternal nature. Ask yourself, if I am eternal, what limitations am I creating for myself now? What fears do I need to dissolve to live my full truth? By embracing the idea that the soul never dies, you begin to live in a more courageous way, more aligned with the purpose of your spiritual journey. Living consciously in the now, finally, the most powerful practice for integrating these teachings is living consciously in the present moment. If reincarnation is real, then each life we live is an opportunity for growth. By living with the awareness that we are on an evolutionary path, we are called to seize each moment as a chance to learn, grow, and improve ourselves. Be grateful for the lessons you have today, in relationships, in difficulties, in challenges. Instead of looking to the future with anxiety or to the past with regret, remember that each experience is a piece of the great puzzle of your soul. By living with this perspective, you become a conscious co-creator of your spiritual journey, building a solid foundation for the future and for all the lives to come. As we have seen, esoteric knowledge about reincarnation was lost, obscured, even banished from scriptures. But as it resurfaces, it offers us a new way to live. By understanding that our souls are on a path of eternal learning, our approach to life, death, and spirituality is profoundly transformed. We are called to live with more wisdom, more love, and more compassion, knowing that each action has an impact not only in this life, but in many others. Now, I invite you to reflect. How does this change your view of life and your purpose here? What will you do with the power that reincarnation and the immortality of the soul bring to your spiritual path? If you found this content valuable, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because we are just beginning to explore the deepest secrets of spirituality and ancestral wisdom. By doing so, you connect to a space where profound knowledge is not only revealed, but lived. And remember, every moment of your life is an opportunity for growth. Now, more than ever, the spiritual journey is in your hands.